All right, Morena, good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm joined by Malcolm Fleming, Chief Executive of the New Zealand Certified Builders. And Certified Builders has been a really important stakeholder. They're a very credible and constructive voice in the industry in general, but also more particularly with the discussions we've had around the consumer protections in terms of liability. So I want to thank you, Malcolm, personally for that, as well as you and your team. You've provided some great insights, and we look forward to hearing from you in a few moments.
Thank you, Minister.
It was in August that the Prime Minister and I announced that the building sector would be overhauled in terms of its consent system. We wanted to tackle the understandable risk aversion that comes about affecting productivity, delaying the delivery of new homes, public buildings and commercial developments all around New Zealand. This will be achieved, addressing this risk aversion and so forth, by replacing the current joint and several liability model with a system of proportionate liability. Right now, councils can be hesitant to consent the projects New Zealand desperately needs because they risk being held fully liable even for defects that they did not cause. This can cost councils, and of course ultimately their ratepayers, millions of dollars. Under the current law, when several parties are involved in a mistake, a customer can pursue any one of them for the full cost of damages, no matter how much each party contributed. Councils can end up paying the entire bill, even if their role was only to sign off the work, because they're the only party that cannot ultimately declare insolvency. Proportionate liability fixes this. It ensures that companies, individuals and councils, as building consent authorities, only pay for the defective work for which they are responsible, creating a fairer, faster and more efficient system. When we announced this change, we said that we would then consider what protections building owners would need. We wanted input from the sector, and we have listened to the sector. Today, therefore, I am now able to set out those protections. First, we're introducing mandatory home warranties. These will apply to all new residential houses, apartment buildings up to 3 stories, and renovations valued at $100,000 or more. They will cover residential construction that involves what's called restricted building work and requires a building consent. All home warranty providers will need to register with the Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment, being NB, meet clear minimum standards set out in regulation, and can be either guarantee or insurance based. Each warranty will include at least 1 year defect period and a 10-year structural warranty. This provides homeowners with confidence that they are protected if problems emerge in the years that follow the completion of their build, even if the builder has retired. Home warranty schemes are already available from various providers, and the sector has assured us that it can scale up to meet demand. Second, building design professionals, including architects, engineers, certain surveyors and other designers, will be required to hold professional indemnity insurance. Design is a key part of any project, of course, yet most warranties do not cover design work. Requiring insurance fills this gap, supports good practice across the sector, and ensures that these professionals can properly stand behind the work that they produce. Finally, we are increasing disciplinary penalties for licensed building practitioners. The LBP scheme is there to ensure competence and accountability, but the penalties have not been updated since 2007. With the move to proportionate liability, the Building Practitioners Board needs the ability to impose penalties that genuinely reflect the seriousness of poor behaviour. Maximum fines will double to $20,000, and the maximum suspension period will extend to 24 months. This supports the many trusted tradies who do things properly by showing that we're prepared to act when someone puts the reputation of the industry, including the many good practitioners, at risk. These measures will strengthen the government's shift to a faster and fairer consenting system, protect consumers, support skilled professionals, and ultimately make building in New Zealand easier and more affordable. This is important for all the communities around New Zealand. Here in the Mount Albert electorate, where I'm joined by my very good friend and colleague Melissa Lee, List MP based in this area for National, we know how important it is that our constituents and all New Zealanders have the ability to be protected in the event that things go wrong. They don't often go wrong, but sometimes they do, and that's why this protection is so important. I'll now hand over to Mr. Malcolm Fleming, who will speak more to the industry perspective on the changes. Thank you very much, and thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you. Morena, and thank you, Minister, for this announcement. It's a result of a lot of hard work and discussions stretching back to earlier this year, but we're thrilled with where we've gotten to. As far as the industry is concerned, this is an essential change, which we expect will have two major outcomes. Firstly, setting up the building industry for growth in the coming years, and secondly, setting up the supply and quality of Kiwi homes. As the Minister has explained, the previous arrangements were unfair to local councils and ultimately to ratepayers also, as they were the ones that had to pick up the bill if something went wrong with the build down the track and the builder wasn't able to put things right. Understandably, this has led to councils taking a cautious approach to the building consents, which has snarled up the system, causing delays and unnecessary costs have been imposed on the homeowners. This move to proportional liability means that whoever's made a mistake is responsible for putting it right. It sounds simple enough, and it is. But the key to making it work is having an effective home warranties in place to protect the homeowner should a builder not be able or willing to rectify any issues that may arise. The good news is that there is a range of home warranty products already available here in New Zealand, and they're affordable. As an example, New Zealand Certified Builders Halo product covers 10 years for the homeowner and generally costs no more than 0.42% of the build price. In our view, home warranties are mandatories, and it is a wise move for another reason as well. Our industry has been plagued by cowboy builders, and they've without proper trade qualifications who come and they go, and they don't take responsibility for their work. I'm looking forward to this new system of leading to a weeding out of those sorts of operators. Poor building practices imposes too much risk on councils. They give the industry a bad name. It also causes a huge amount of stress to homeowners who just want to be able to enjoy their new build or the renovation. They want to be worrying about whether the job is up to scratch. They rightly expect that it will be up to scratch. So finally, thank you to the Minister for your leadership on this initiative, and thank you to all the MB officials who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Together, we've helped us deliver the most significant change to the building regulatory system in decades, and along with that, implemented change that industry has been calling for quite some time. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Great, now, call upon any questions that you may have, our friends from the Fourth Estate.
I guess any examples you have of councils being hesitant or having to dish out money because of the current rules?
I mean, I hear of such examples every day. I don't want to give street addresses and be too specific, but I think most New Zealanders would have had the experience or know someone who has had an experience whereby a rather baffling decision has been made, whether it's not to grant a consent or a large flurry of what are known as RFIs or requests for further information. And sometimes that reflects the fact that different councils have different interpretations of the same building code. That's something we're looking to address separately in the question of allowing them to consolidate their functions, but it also reflects the risk aversion that councils naturally feel on behalf of their ratepayers, which as ratepayers we should be thankful for, by the way, which is why we're moving to the proportionate liability so that they don't have that risk aversion that leads to some of these perverse outcomes and frankly anomalous stories of that which is approved on one side of the street but not on the other.
And I guess upping the penalties, are you confident that there's enough enforcement in place to dish out these new penalties?
Yeah, we think so. We think it's a suite of measures that make sense across the board. One is about the extent of the penalties, which is one of the points that we're announcing today. Another is ensuring that the Building Practitioners Board and the related trades boards, by the way, have the ability to enforce the occupational standards, the regulations, and also the ethics of those involved. And we think that it also makes sense in terms of meaning that people who are able to do the work have been backed by a guarantee scheme, for example, Halo, as offered by certified builders, or one of the equivalents. And that's because on the flip side, if a building professional can't get the kind of guarantee or the warranty to back their work, then actually, to me, that's a red flag that they shouldn't be let loose on the home of a young couple or those looking to try and live, work and play in a structure in New Zealand. So we think it will have a helpful effect in terms of weeding out bad operators at that level as well.
Minister, just a question on the home insurance mandatory, which is a big part of this announcement. Based on, if we do a calculation on, let's say, a $750,000 townhouse pretty average, and based on, let's say, 0.6% cost of the home insurance, that still comes to about $4,500 a year, which is quite a significant amount of money. And if I were to do the calculation on $1 million house,
Yep.
which is more like the average in Auckland,
Yep.
that number would even be higher, right? So $4,500 for a $750,000 townhouse. Do you think it's fair to now for homeowners to have to, to pay this extra cost?
Yeah,
Cover this,
it's a really good.
to reduce councils' liability load? Do you think it's fair on homeowners, during cost of living crisis, during, in the current environment?
Yeah, it's a very astute question, if I may say, but there are several points that need to be made. One, we're paying at the moment already. There's a generalised cost that gets spread across all the ratepayers, and the effect is really that every man, woman and child is subsidising poor building practices. That's the first thing. The second thing is, in many cases, these insurance or warranty or guarantee schemes are actually already in place. So adding the relatively few additional operators needing professional indemnity insurance in terms of the designers, the architects, the building surveyors and so on, is a relatively small cost. And likewise for the warranties and the guarantees offered by, for example, Halo, by New Zealand certified builders. Again, it's a relatively little additional cost. And I would also just add, if I may, that the cost of defective building works when there is remediation or even demolition involved is huge. And that's something that has unfairly been falling upon a few who have been unlucky enough to contract a builder who hasn't had these protections in place.
Do we have any figures to illustrate how much cost the average ratepayer is actually bearing at the moment for these building defects?
Yeah.
How many ratepayers, how much are ratepayers actually, what is the invisible cost? Do we have any calculation on
Yeah, there have been such calculations made. I'm trying to recall exactly, and I'm not going to risk a dollar figure that's wrong now, but happy to come back to you. And that was part of our announcement a couple of months ago in August when the Prime Minister and I set out the cost as determined over the period of a decade. And, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. But there's another cost as well, which is hidden, which is the delays associated with building work that is held up through risk-averse consenting because of the joint and several liability. That add costs in a way that reflects, for example, $400 a day of every day of delay. You soon get to the $4,000 on your calculation, 0.6% on a $700,000 house on a 10-day delay for that, and after that you're winning even in economic terms. And if you think about 10 days worth of delays in terms of inspection and the consenting, you very quickly can get to that.
On the risk aversion aspect of councils, which you say is holding up the consenting process, we know that for a lot of the leaky buildings in Auckland, for example, the leaky apartments, some of that is also partly to do with councils' lax inspections or mistakes or negligence during the inspections. And we know that council teams, in terms of checking compliance and consents, they're pretty stretched at the moment. I think that's a known fact. Do you think with this joint liability, that could be a risk for council to be even more lax with their checks? Do you think that's a risk factor to be considered?
Well, the leaky homes crisis actually demonstrates perfectly why we do need proportionate liability. Too many bad operators in that phase were able to simply turn out their pockets and walk away. They would close down their building company or the development company, set up another one in a practice known as phoenixing, and they weren't held accountable. They didn't have to have the insurance or the warranty scheme or the design professional indemnity insurance to stand behind that, and that's precisely why homeowners and commercial building owners were left bereft, except to the extent that the ratepayer and long-suffering taxpayer also had to step in.
I guess my question is, are you confident that councils will continue, will still be able to do a great job of doing these checks without that negligence would be controlled, and that, are you confident that councils will still be able to do a good job of the checks, a strict job, given that now they will have less liability?
Yes.
I guess I'm asking that.
Yeah, very, very fair question again. And can I give you 3 reasons why? Number one, councils as building consent authorities have statutory obligations. Those are set out in law. Number 2, they get accredited as building consent authorities on the basis that they have the quality assurance practices in place and can demonstrate over the preceding 2 years and going into the next 2-year period for that accreditation that they have met those standards. And then the third point is that councils will remain still on the hook for the liability associated with their decisions. So they are part of the proportionate liability system. They do still issue a consent in the first instance. They will still conduct inspections and issue a code compliance certificate at the end. So they will have some share, but they won't have the full share.
On the professional indemnity insurance for engineers and architects, do we have a baseline of how many in this industry already actually have professional indemnity insurance, and how much difference will this make now to make that mandatory?
Yeah, the advice is that the vast majority do. I think that the number is north of 90%. So in terms of the remainder, obviously therefore less than 10% would need to come up to that standard. And I think that's a responsible thing for a practitioner in that space to do in any case. So I would be concerned if any are not able